Well, it's me again. Some of this stuff, I'm just getting it out of my head while it's in my head. Because when I think about it, I would be out driving or something like that, and then once it's gone, it's gone. So, itchy nose. So anyway, my mall, another store that I worked at the South Coast Plaza was the Metropolitan Museum of Art Shop, and this was after I had worked at the Nature Company. And in my mind, these two stores were the pinnacle of the markets that they were covering. There was another company called Natural Wonders, and I worked for them for 2 days, but they were, in my opinion, more gimmicky than real. Which is, there's nothing wrong with it. They were catering to a different market. That's all it was. So anyway, the Metropolitan Museum of Art Shop, I don't know if they're still there at South Coast Plaza, but it was really cool. What it was is the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, I think that's what it was making copies of some of their art and retailing it, the replicas at the mall. It was really cool. I got hired for the Christmas season because I knew the lingo of art shops at that time, and I kind of played the boss. So I got the job, just doing warehousing and stuff like that, and merchandising, making sure presentations were correct. Anything. Well, that was a really cool store to work for too. I mean, I could take the books home and read the books as long as I brought them back and they were in good shape. Stuff. It was very liberal and open-minded, but some of the coolest stuff art would go through, and it was great for Christmas because I got discounts and I got some of my mom and my sister, and some pretty cool stuff. But you never know how things are going to work out. So I worked at this shop, and there was this girl that worked there who was from Korea. She's gorgeous, petite, and everything like that, and everything. And we were sociable and everything like that. We'd flirt back and forth, and I asked her if she could go out on a date. She said, "I can't." And I'm like, "Dude, why are you playing the game?" She goes, "Well, I like you." Well, that doesn't help. She goes, my parents arranged a marriage for me. And she was from Korea. So for me, it was like, clunk. Well, darn it. She says, if it wasn't for my parents, I would go out with you. And I believed her. She wasn't giving me the push off, because we weren't unfriendly after that. And no, I wasn't going to take any chances. Which I have an interesting story about something I learned about the Koreans in Southern California at that time. This is part of my cultural expansion. Utah kid coming to Southern California, and this whole world is enveloping me in all this culture. California was awesome a long time ago. No, not a long time ago. That means like ancient times. In the 80s and the 90s, it was awesome. Southern California was for somebody like me who's just trying to soak up everything. So anyway, I worked at this store, and that was really cool. I was doing the warehousing and shipping and mail and all that stuff. And I'm not posting a resume or anything like that because it was actually pretty hard work. And you get some delivery drivers who weren't very professional, which was kind of annoying. But that's just part of the business. But there was a couple of really cool things that I found at the Met, and one of them was little tiny, about that big, about as big as my thumb. It was a Japanese cat, and it was done in this brown kind of stone, Well, I mean, facsimile brownstone. And it's like a guardian, as far as I could guess. So when I brought that home, I got that for myself. When I brought that back to my house, or how did I get it? I think I gave it to my mom or something like that. But I brought it back, and I knew what it was for. And so there was this nook. We had the front door. We had this little corner nook with a thing to put doodads on. And I never told anybody what it was for, but I put this little cat up in the corner thing, which everybody thought was cool. I hope one of my nieces got it, or my sister. But it was a door guardian to keep bad spirits out. So anyway, while I was working at the nature company, or not nature company, the Met, it's kind of confusing how things worked out. I ended up living with a guy from Iran, or Persia, Iran. And well, he said, this is kind of like in America, everybody's got a Cherokee princess in their bloodline. Well, this is the assumption. Now, he said he was part of one of the royal families from Iran. I was super nice guy, super smart, perfect English. Well, he was very sociable. He worked at one of the hotels, and he would work crazy hours. I ended up renting a room from him for a couple of months, and I wasn't making very much at the Met. So I was only there for 2 or 3 months, but I learned so much. And he discovered, okay, I like German opera and English opera. I like opera, period. Well, I had a cassette. Yes, this is back in the old days when they had cassettes. I had a cassette of German opera. And he's like, can I have it? I just love it. He would listen to it. He had a Mercedes-Benz. And I said, you can have it, because he was totally gaga about it. But the cool thing is I got to experience kebab. I got to experience crunchy rice. Tastes like popcorn. I got to experience a lot of stuff through this guy. His name was Reza. Well, anyway, what happened is at the time I was without a car. And so he had a 1979 Honda Civic, that CVCC. It's a little two-door hatchback. So he sold it to me for $600. Well, between rent and that, I didn't have $600. I told him straight out, I don't have the money to pay for it. He says, just take the car, and you can pay me. Back, and he goes, I can find you. Okay. California. I mean, he's from Iran. If he says he can find me, okay. Take it for what he said. And I believed him. So he let me have this Honda Civic. And the gear shift didn't have a shift indicator knob. So what ended up happening is I had to end up in... I didn't have enough money to pay rent. That was important to him, because that was how he stayed alive. So I was at college also, and so I was talking to some of my Vietnamese friends about my predicament, and one of my friends, and this is all coming from the Metropolitan Museum of Art shop. So Christmas season ended, and my boss said, don't come in anymore. No warning, no nothing or anything like that. He just said, he didn't really fire me. He just said, don't come back. Well, I hadn't done anything wrong. So I got unemployment insurance through that. And then I had the car. And so it was just kind of a mix-up. There was so much going on with me at that time that it's hard to calculate what was going on. So anyway, while I was talking to some of my Vietnamese friends, and I only lived like 2 or 3 months with this Iranian guy who was way cool, and he understood my situation. He started to kind of treat me like a houseboy, though. Like I was the one that's supposed to clean up after him and stuff like that. And it was kind of annoying, but I needed a place to live. So anyway, I didn't have any money because I lost my job at the Met. So I was talking to some of my Vietnamese friends, and they said, well, we've got an apartment that you can come and stay with us for a while. Well, it ended up being a 2-bedroom apartment with 10 people in the apartment in Garden Grove, right next to Saigon, Little Saigon. I call it Saigon Moy. And so here I am with this Honda Civic, and I ended up living in this apartment complex that is all Vietnamese. Well, it's like 50-50. Vietnamese and Latino, Mexican. I'm the only white guy in this whole place. I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 10 Vietnamese people. The upstairs room was a bunch of Vietnamese home invasion gangsters. They always paid their bills, so what can you do? And they never bothered anybody. In the other room was a family who had just immigrated from Vietnam. They were third wave Vietnamese, and they were super nice, and they had a little boy named Sam Lai, and he would always eat with me because he liked me better than he liked his parents at this little tiny apartment. And my bed was under the staircase. That was my spot. No real privacy. So, I mean, snake tea and what I call prisoner soup. Basically, it's sesame oil, cabbage, carrots, and something else, and maybe noodles. So, with so many people there in this apartment and my Honda Civic, I drove this car around for I don't know how long. It was only a couple of months. Well, I was driving it around at 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And one day, I'm just driving down the freeway, just tootling along, and I'm like checking the shift quadrant. There's a 5th gear. Oh, gas mileage got really a lot better on that. Well, what ended up happening is because I was driving around 4th gear, the harmonics loosened some of the bolts in the engine, and it had an engine fire. So I ended up parking it in the parking lot of the place, the apartment place. I know this is kind of a rambling thing, but I got to get it out of my head or I'll lose it for forever. The Civic, it still ran and everything like that. So I parked it in the parking lot, but I wasn't going to drive it anymore. And I can't remember how I got another job. I think that's when I started doing temp jobs or something like that. So I'm in this apartment, and there's these regular Vietnamese people who would ask me to come over and visit for the night, not spend the night over, but come to be. It's a very social Vietnamese thing, and in this apartment, front door was always open. And these two, there was a 12-year-old girl and an 8-year-old girl that would always come over and bug me because I was different. And everybody else in the apartment complex, because I was the only white guy, they was a little bit scared of me. So anyway, except for the Latinos, they didn't care. I wasn't going to report anybody because we're all refugees, literally. So what happened is somebody stole the battery out of my Honda. And then one of my neighbors, the parents of the 2 girls that kept coming over and bugging me all the time, he said, well, you want to sell your Honda? And I'm like, okay. I paid $600 for it. I said, well, I'll sell it for $800. He's like, here, flip, flip, flip. Gave me $100 cash right there. And so the car disappeared. No, he gave me $500. So the car disappeared, and I'm like, what the heck? So I checked at school at Orange Coast College, some of my other friends who knew him. I said, where'd my car go? Because it disappeared. And so I got the address, they told me where it was, and I showed up, and he's like, how'd you find me? I'm like, all I want is my $300. I don't care about the car. So it kind of scared him, paid me the money. I went back to the apartment, and oh my gosh, at this apartment there was some kind of drama. This is all this stuff that I'm going through in a very short. It's all fogged together because all of this stuff was going on. There were so many people in the apartment that no privacy, and the only way you could get privacy for your thoughts was to go somewhere else. So anyway, I got rid of the Honda. I ended up driving my sister's Volvo. And this is at the bottom, what I thought was the bottom of my existence. It wasn't really the bottom. It didn't feel the bottom because, my friend that was in charge of the apartment, he would let me use his car. I'd drive down to San Diego just because I needed space away. So anyway, I stayed there until he graduated from college. And then, oh my gosh, I inherited a feral cat and her kittens. And, well, anyway, that's just boring stuff, Honda stuff. And I was driving, my sister had a 73 Volvo 124. It was a four-door, it was burgundy. It was a really nice car. Well, it wasn't really nice, but it was a very functional car. So, anyway, almost towards the end of when I was living in this apartment in kind of an emergency thing, I ended up living with a Vietnamese family afterwards. But at this apartment, what I would do is there was a donut shop over near where I lived. Well, I would go over there until it was, time to go to bed. I always hang out over at the donut shop, and they let me stay there. And the cool thing was, the owner of the shop was Chinese Cambodian, and the guy that he had working for him at nights, like until 3 a.m. so you'd have fresh donuts. He was Cambodian, very shy and quiet, but we ended up becoming speaking friends, not friends, because he was just too reserved and, a little bit skittish. But I became good friends with those guys for a long time, and I would always drive over to get my donuts, because I'll tell you what, Southern California, if you want good donuts, make sure the owners of the donut shop are Cambodian, because they know their stuff. Really good donuts at any donut shop that's owned by Cambodians in Southern California, in Garden Grove, Orange County, that area. So anyway, I'm rambling, but the whole cultural thing down there and experience everything. The biggest thing with the Vietnamese is they were shocked as heck that an American was not too proud to live with them the way they live. And for me, it was entirely a whole brand new experience. I learned a lot of stuff, and yes, being an American, we're noisy, we're pushy, and we're argumentative, and everything like that, and they put up with me. Because sometimes I would get really PO'd because of some of the stuff that they would do that was unhygienic. I'll put it that way. And they thought it was funny because I would clean the shower, I'd mop the floors. I don't like it when a rag smells like vinegar, that kind of stuff. They were just living what's normal to them. It's not for me to make a judgment on people who are helping me out because I speak their language. It wasn't, there goes my thing again. It's a pump, an air pump that runs down to my foot. I'm just gonna say that it's a vacuum that's helping a wound close on my foot. So you know, a lot of people would say that it was bad times, and it wasn't bad times. I was getting all kinds of intercultural experience. You know, for this Utah boy, that if I had never gone to California, I would have never experienced any of this stuff. So anyway, I probably better finish this ramble right now. But you know, back in the early '90s, California was the place to be for somebody who's going through learning all this intercultural stuff. And I was interfacing with everybody, you know, from Iran to Cambodia to Ecuador to... In Ecuador wasn't a really strong thing, but, you know, the only thing that was kind of scary with the Vietnamese community is there's still political people there who are kind of try to drag you over to their political side. And man, my main goal was remaining completely neutral on everything. So anyway, that's my ramble, and I'm not sure where I was even going to take it. So sorry. California at one time, I don't know what happened to California. It's a kind of a heartbreaking disappointment. You know, everybody nowadays with the politics and everything like that, it seems like it's popular for people to hate each other, and that's not what I experienced in the early '90s and the middle '90s. So anyway, thanks for watching. This posting all this horse pucky is actually pretty cathartic. I gotta get it out before everything falls in and I lose everything. I'm not worried about it. I don't care. You know, it's disappointing. As long as I can keep my bagpipes, you know, and I can keep my other stuff in storage, I'm going to be fine. So, you know, universe bless all y'alls. Yeah, and be creative in your thinking. If you think you're in a bad spot, there's always a way to fix it. Okay? Thanks for watching my videos. I'm going to put this on my obscure board thing. Have a good night. Bye.